You know that feeling when you realize nothing is sacred anymore? Yeah, that's where we're at now. Just recently, a trailer came up on my feed for a new Smurfs movie that is somehow releasing this year in 2025 and being made by Paramount and co-produced by Rihanna of all people. While I was honestly surprised to see there was a new Smurfs movie at all coming this year, I was even more surprised to see how this particular trailer seemed to play out. The trailer shows Smurfette and the other Smurfs being sucked through a portal and whisked away from Smurf Village straight to a modern day city in our world, complete with real people in cars bustling about for them to fear for their lives from. Now, does that sound familiar at all? It's almost like they've done something like this before. Oh wait, they have! This trailer is the exact same as the trailer for the 2011 Smurfs, where the Smurfs also just so happened to get sucked into our world and also had to brave the dangers of modern day society. Like, come on, you guys have done this before, just the first time they looked way uglier. I was honestly astounded to see they chose to go this route yet again, given there was actually a different Smurfs movie from 2017 that was actually fully animated and featured the Smurfs finding a lost village of people just like them. Then it hit me, this film is not trying to capture the audience of 80s kids who initially grew up with the original cartoon like the other three films try to do. This film is somehow trying to target people who were kids when the first 2011 live-action Smurfs movie came out, and create a phony sense of nostalgia within them for a movie that wasn't even good to begin with. They're going as far even to use Rihanna, an artist many 2000s kids grew up with and who also has not had an album released since 2016, as the main voice of Smurfette and having her co-produce the film even, to further try and manufacture this false sense of attachment or nostalgia to the Smurfs IP, even though more than likely, most of them have no attachment to this franchise whatsoever. And believe it or not, they're not the only studio who has blatantly utilized a tactic like this with no shame whatsoever. Nostalgia is a powerful thing in today's culture, with it being something that can easily bring back a sense of comfort or warmth for a consumer, bringing them to a time that they might remember fondly. And as a result, it's very easily weaponized by studios when promoting a new movie, show, game, whatever. It is a cutthroat tactic and trend that'll never die. As studio executives become less inclined to come up with new ideas, it becomes all the easier to try and dip back into that old pot of gold. But while using nostalgic properties is one thing, attempting to force nostalgia on things that might not actually have the biggest nostalgic value overall is another, and that's what is called manufacturing nostalgia. To give a good example, let's look at how Andrew Garfield showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home. Is Andrew Garfield a good actor? Yes, absolutely. He's proven his acting chops in multiple films he's been in. Were his Spider-Man films widely loved by the public, however? No, absolutely not. When these films came out, the general consensus on them was that they were either bad or mediocre and that they lacked all the original charm that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies had. However, Andrew Garfield showing up in No Way Home immediately ignited the spirits of fans online who claimed it was a great nostalgia trip seeing Andrew Garfield in No Way Home. But as stated before, Garfield's movies were both disappointing to varying degrees for many people upon their release, and the opinion really never seemed to change until No Way Home. So what exactly happened to make people suddenly like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man? Manufactured nostalgia, that's exactly what. Andrew Garfield in No Way Home is very well portrayed for being like a cool older brother to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and also for the emotional scene where he saves MJ. In this film, he's very likable, but does that mean his movies themselves are good or are generally considered to be good? No, of course not. But for a second, this movie almost tricks you into thinking that. It even features the villains from Garfield's movies in a much more interesting way, most notably Electro. It's pretty much a textbook example of manufactured nostalgia, but interestingly enough, manufactured nostalgia doesn't always have to be applied to things that were considered mediocre or bad. It can also be applied to things that aren't quite old enough yet to even be considered nostalgic. For an example of this, let's look at Marvel again and look specifically at who they announced will be playing Doctor Doom in their upcoming Avengers Secret Wars film. None other than Robert Downey Jr. Whoopee. When this was announced initially, it was met with tons of bewilderment since it seemed like a pretty obvious ploy for nostalgia, with many Marvel fans loving and missing Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man in the movies. But the thing is, Robert Downey Jr. last played Iron Man in the movies just 6 years ago in Avengers Endgame. So there's not really anything to add nostalgia for because not nearly enough time has passed for that. But obviously Disney and Marvel do want you to feel this for forced factory-made sense of nostalgia they're selling you to go see their movie. Disney is probably the most notorious with this overall, choosing to remake Moana, a Disney movie that isn't even a decade old yet, in some desperate hope of an audience that might be nostalgic for that somehow. And apparently choosing to do the same with Tangled too. Even deciding to use Rey in the next Star Wars trilogy that is apparently somehow still being made, and making her the Obi-Wan Kenobi of that franchise when most people didn't even like the Star Wars sequels to begin with is utterly baffling. Disney has always made their brand off of nostalgia, admittedly, selling childlike joy to people of all ages, and things obviously have become more pointy towards a direct demographic when they remade movies like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Little Mermaid, but despite those all being terrible remakes, they could obviously still be pointed towards an audience of millennials who grew up with those films and liked them. But with everything else I just listed, who is going to be nostalgic for the 2011 Smurfs movie, the Amazing Spider-Man films, or films that came out just 6 years ago? It just doesn't make any sense. And again, ultimately, there's no real nostalgia going on here. It is all completely manufactured. Nobody is actively actually nostalgic for the 2011 Smurfs movie, but Sony or Paramount might try to convince some people that they are. Ultimately, manufactured nostalgia is perhaps the last gasp of an era of Hollywood desperate to find something for its consumers to cling to, or in many cases, try to forcefully create that itself and convince its consumers they're nostalgic for it. It's even easier to see through than your average nostalgia tactics, and it's twice as mind-numbing to see. I honestly hope we see more original ideas put out in films in the future, but let's face it, as long as Hollywood can make money in doing things like this, it's always gonna exist. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think manufactured nostalgia is a real thing? Am I just making it up? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And let me know about any other film tropes you'd like to hear about on this channel in the future. Also, of course, I'm gonna be that guy, but subscribe if you haven't already. I can see how many of my viewers are subscribed and how many aren't, and this statistic here, this does not lie, so go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. If you like videos just covering film overall, you'll find yourself quite at home here, since that's really all I talk about just in general. You can also join my Discord for active discussion on this kind of stuff too, or in order to actually suggest new video topics for me as well. Special thanks to my patrons DDC1986 and Trayvon Gibson as well for supporting me over there. I appreciate it. Every little bit helps what I do here. And with that, I hope I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my Letterboxd, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube. So you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye!